In this lecture, we want to review multiplying rational expressions. Multiplying rational expressions is really about simplifying, and I want you to remember to always simplify before you multiply. I know it's possible to do these questions by multiplying first and then simplifying. But what will happen then is you will create such a mess that it will be impossible to simplify. So you need to get into your mind this idea of simplifying. This becomes more and more important as the questions that we look at become more and more complex. So again, I've got some steps for you to follow. You should memorize these and make sure you think about them every time you encounter a rational expression. And look, step one is the same as it was for our simplifying. You need to factor the numerator and the denominator completely. So why don't you pause your video and factor those two rational expressions. So the next thing we want to do is divide out any common factors. Now remember that we're dividing between the numerator and the denominator, and we're dividing out factors. Factors are those parts that are multiplying. So we see that x squared plus 1 is a common factor, and x minus 1 in the top and bottom in the numerator and denominator are also common factors. That leaves us with x minus 1 all times 4, and we usually like that integer in the front. And in the denominator, x times x plus 2. The final step is just to multiply. And you might remember when you're multiplying fractions, it's the numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. Now, in Pearson, it may allow you to stop here. This is factored form, so read carefully. If you're asked to leave your answer in factored form, this is where you stop. If it does not say factored form, you should probably open the brackets, use the distributive property, and multiply everything out. Both of these are fine. And finally, because we want practice, we're going to state any restrictions. What are the non-permissible values of x? Remember, we have to go back to the beginning of the question. So I look here where I see x cannot equal 0. I'm going to skip that next factor for a moment. We look here and see that x cannot equal -2. We look here and see that x cannot equal 1. Now let's talk about this factor here, x squared plus 1. I hope you recognize that this is a sum of squares. It cannot be factored and it will never equal 0. In order for this to equal 0, x squared would have to be -1. And you should know when you square a number, it's always positive. So there are no restrictions for that term. This question has 3 restrictions. So pause your video, factor the numerators and the denominators. You'll see I left some space on this page for those of you who have factoring work to do, where you split the middle terms, find the common factor. You should write all that out. That work doesn't need to be in your question. So step 2 is to divide out common factors. We see that x minus 5 is common, X plus 8 is common. X minus 4 is common. All we have left here is X minus 3 all over X plus 6. Pause your video and state the restrictions. You should have 4 restrictions because there are 4 different factors containing X in the denominator. Remember that for our restrictions, it's the denominator that cannot equal 0. The numerator is fine. X can equal 3, that's okay. All right, pause your video, multiply these rational expressions, and state the restrictions. So you found common factors of 2x minus 3 and 2x minus 1. When you left your answer as x plus 4 times x minus 4 all over x plus 3 times x plus 2, this is your answer in factored form. So again, if that's what Pearson asks for, stop here. Both of these are correct. I highlighted the 4 factors containing x that gave us our restrictions. Spend some time practicing this before you move into division.